Hello, good people. It's Rob Lee. Before we get into part 2 of this video series, and I don't know if it's going to end up being 2 parts or 3 parts, let me say just a couple things to you. This video will change your views of this world if you will see the truth that is in it. And I'm so confident of that I would not say it. I would not make such a statement unless I truly believed it. As always, I take no credit, because if the Father wanted me blind, I would be blind. And I tell you the truth is that I spent many years of my life walking in the darkness before Jesus the Christ came and got me. Our King and our Redeemer, Jesus the Christ, cast out devils. Yet most folks who claim to believe in Jesus or the Bible, they will deny devils and demons exist, right? Now, evil spirits are in the Bible from the beginning to the end. Evil spirits have characteristics. They are throughout the Holy Scriptures. And we are told that we battle them constantly, right? And this is what Ephesians 6 tells us, that the true power, right? The true power is the evil spirits that we cannot see. Now, during this video, or in part 3, we're going to look at those characteristics. It's going to help us to understand Genesis 6, the Nephilim. When talking about Genesis 6 and those that fell called the Nephilim, bullies or tyrants, you are simply looking at evil spirits that took flesh form, all right? These are the ones who fell, who left their first estate, all right? This is in the book of Jude. You are looking at the remains of this corrupt DNA that still walks this earth today. However, the problem is that it's not as most folks think or what they believe, because they've been taught lies about the subject. You see, there is no need to make the subject exotic or confuse it by teaching things that are not related to the subject. And this is what the false teachers do, and false teachers are everywhere in our modern times. I understand that most of what I talk about on this channel is certainly not mainstream Christianity. I'm not on the same page with many of the Christian world, nor will I ever be. They and their so-called leaders do nothing but spew lies and change the Bible to fill their own needs. I've never been afraid to debate any of them about any issue whatsoever. Yet these folks will never debate. They will only quote verses out of context. They will cherry pick what suits them and build an entire theology out of a few verses. In fact, folks, listen to me. The most evil entity on this world that we can see is able to do evil based on false doctrine of the Holy Scriptures. You see, beliefs that are contrary to what the Scriptures actually teach allows the most evil entity on this earth to keep going. Daniel 12:9 and Daniel 12:10 says this. This is talking about the end times. And he said, "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." Verse 10. "Many shall be made purified and made white and tried." That's us. You see, you will be purified. You will be made purified, and then the white is symbolic of what? Purity. And you will be tried. But notice what it says after that. It says, "But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." The famine of the word is here, but our Father will always see that his own children have water and bread to nourish our souls. Remember the words of Jesus the Christ in the Lord's Prayer. He said, "Give us this day our daily bread." I would never do anything to dishonor my Father or Jesus Christ under any circumstances. I would never teach you anything that I believe to be a lie, and I've always told you I don't consider myself worthy to be a teacher, but my Father has called me to do something, and I just go with it. I would never dishonor you as a person by telling you something that would harm you or hurt your faith. And everything that I tell you, folks, I firmly believe it 100%. 100%. It is amazing to be alive during these times. It's also painful to be alive during these times, because we see the evil that surrounds us. With more wisdom comes more sorrow, the book of Ecclesiastes. You know, when you have eyes to see, we see evil on a scale that is unmatched. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's growing, man. It's getting worse. And this is what Jesus the Christ meant when he said that the tribulation would be like any other time on this earth. It would be that bad. And we are currently witnessing the birth of this evil and the great tribulation. A worldwide coalition of the most powerful and evil beings, seen and unseen, have come against our family. And it is surreal to see the beings that walk among us. It truly is. Once you come to the truth, I mean the truth, once the Father takes you deeper, it's surreal, man. It really is. But at the same time, and a brother on the channel said this a long time ago, and it made me feel so good that I was able to reach him. He goes by the name of Timmy Osmond. His name is Jim. He's from Canada. He's a good brother. He said it helped him to understand the world. And that's what I hope that it will do for you, because it's what it did for me. It helped me to understand. It really did. But it's tough to digest at first, and it's not for everybody. We just got through reading in Daniel 12 that it's for those who have been called to understand. All right? The subject of Genesis 6 as taught today is that we have 20 and 30-foot and even bigger beings running around all over the world. In fact, the internet is full of bogus pictures and lies upon lies of stories of giants being captured. In fact, the National Geographic has been caught in a lie. On the front page of their magazine, they put a picture of a giant skeleton. Well, come to find out, it was a lie. It was photoshopped. It was a lie. Now, here is one of the biggest magazines in the world, one of the most popular, putting a blatant lie on the cover, and people believed it. There are pictures all over the internet of giants photoshopped, of 20, 30, 40, 50-foot beings just running around everywhere. There are some big folks walking this earth, people, listen to me, but not like what they're telling us. And this is a lie, because there is a massive propaganda campaign to convince us that these evil beings are going to come back, and they're going to return, and they're going to take us over. You see, is it not strange for those of us who know the truth and who believe and know that that Eve, in the Garden of Eden, that she procreated with the serpent, the devil, the dragon, and they had a hybrid child named Cain? Let me ask you something. Why was Cain not a giant? I mean, his father was the devil. His father was a fallen being, correct? Why was he not a giant? Why did he not produce giants? Yeah, all right. So do you not find it odd that there's also so much attention being given to the subject of Genesis 6, the fallen ones, but not to the subject of Genesis 3 and the spirits of Ephesians 6, or how about the flood of Revelation? More importantly, why is there so little attention being given to the teachings of Jesus Christ? You see, folks, the truth is far more compelling and far more dangerous. Now, when these beings fell in Genesis 6, how big were they? I mean, surely the smart folks on this channel were not naive enough to believe that 20-foot beings were having intimate relations with 5-foot women, right? I mean, surely you can see the fallacy in this. On the other hand, is it that fallen demons came to earth after leaving their first estate, and after they procreated with women, they produced these giants, right? Well, how is that possible? I mean, how can this be? How can that be that a demon could fall, take an earthly woman, and they could produce a giant? Well, let's go further, and as always, let's allow our Father to be the ultimate authority on all matters. Now, before you wonder, do I believe in giants? Yes, but not like what's being taught. You see, brethren, when we start to research, pray, and let our Father teach us, we start to see many of the mysteries of the Bible in a different light. In fact, we can learn what's called the truth. So let's do a quick review of part 1 about the different people, races, and beings that walk this earth now and in the past. In Genesis 3:14-15, we see that the serpent has his own distinct seed line, and it is opposed to the seed of the woman. This is important. The Father said that he would put hatred between these two opposing families. In Ezekiel 31, it teaches us that there many people lived on this earth long before us. And Genesis 6 tells us that there was a worldwide flood and that beings fell. Is this true? This is true. We see ancient ruins all over the earth that point to ancient people and a time that we don't really know about. Okay? I mean, we don't know the true timeline. So let's get to Genesis number 6. Now, we don't have to talk about the flood because we've already covered that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about the giants, the Nephilim. Now, I'm not going to read to you, I'm not going to quote every book, chapter, and verse pertaining to the giants in the Holy Scriptures. There's no need to. There's no need for us to go on about 6-toed giants, 15-foot tall, because I'm telling you, the truth is far more sinister and far more compelling when you bring it up to the current time. So let's read a few verses, and I think that many of you'll come to the light. As we learned in part 1, and I'm going to keep telling you, your Father has always given you an adversary. It's important that we have an adversary. This is throughout the Scriptures, man. In the Scriptures, his first adversary that he gave our family was Cain. Well, that wasn't enough, because now he gives us another adversary in the form of these giants, right? The fallen ones, the ones who fell, bullies, tyrants, all right? And that's what they actually were. And they haven't gone anywhere, but they're not 40 feet tall. Now, I showed you, and I'm going to convince you, that we have always had adversaries. We need them to grow and learn. We need them to see that we cannot make it without our Father. This is so critical to understanding your Father's plan. Adversaries from the very beginning. All right, so let's dive into Genesis chapter 6, and let's get into this, and let's learn the truth about the ones called the Nephilim, the fallen angels. All right, good people, let's go ahead and read from Genesis chapter 6. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now the key words and phrases in these verses are sons of God, daughters of men, giants, mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now the phrase sons of God appears 5 times in the Old Testament, twice in the passage of Genesis, and 3 times in the book of Job. Now Job's passages are plainly angels. So in the context of the Old Testament, the Genesis references should be understood first as angels, unless there is sufficient evidence or reason to rule it out. And quite frankly, it's not. So it's quite apparent the book of Genesis is referring to the same beings that are mentioned in Job, all right? And these beings are also in the book of Revelation, they're in the book of Jude, they're in the book of Matthew, they're throughout the entire scriptures, folks. But we'll come back to that in part 3, because it's incredibly important. Okay, let's read Job 1:6 and Job 2:6. Now, they are identical verses because it's repeating itself. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. The sons of God are angels. Now, Job 38:6-7, the Almighty Father is chastising Job. And in verse 6 he says, and he's asking Job, what do you know? And he's chastising him. Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? Then in verse 7 he makes a comment, when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. These are angels. So it's clear they are demonic beings that have fallen. I mean, even calling them angels is kind of a reach, man, really. I mean, once you fall, once you're cast out, you're not really an angel, man. I mean, you're really not. And apparently these monsters, they fell, they were cast out, they took women as their wives, and they created children. Then we have a flood to destroy the region and rid that part of the earth of these monsters. Now, did it get rid of them, all of them? No, it wasn't supposed to. If the Father wanted to do that, he sure as hell would have did it, because the Father can do anything he wants. So, brethren, do I believe in giants? Absolutely, yes. But not as it's being taught by the Babylonian agents today. Now, what happened 10, 20, 30, 50,000 years ago, I have no idea, nor does anybody else. There may have been 50, 100-foot giants that walked this earth. I don't know. I do know it's dangerous to leave the parameters of Scripture and to go searching for things that you're never going to find out. You see, the devil loves that. You see, that's what these agents that work for the devil, that's what they love, is when you go searching for things that you can't find the answers to. So, let's ask a few questions that we can ask of our Father from His Word. Let's do a little short investigation into this subject, and let's just ask a couple of pertinent questions. The first question is obviously, why would our loving Father allow this to happen? I mean, really. Now, I've made it clear that no act ever takes place without our Father's approval. No fallen angels fell without His approval. Only the weak, the ignorant, and the spiritually stunted believe that the Creator allowed any evil to fall to this earth without His knowledge, you see. It's amazing that churches and people actually believe there was a massive coup in heaven and angels were nudging each other saying, hey man, we're going to take on the Father. Are you in? I mean, we're about ready to just take it over. I mean, this is the nonsense that people actually believe. Jesus Christ said that not a sparrow hits the ground without our Father's knowledge. So how asinine to believe that a bunch of angels formed a coup and revolted against the Almighty Father. I'll say it again. If that's the case, we're all in deep trouble. My Father is all-knowing, all-powerful. I mean, I'm not sure what Father that you worship, but mine is Big Daddy, boss of it all. See, these beings fell because it was part of our Father's program. It's part of His plan. So what did it accomplish? Well, if we look at it from the perspective of being children of the Almighty Father, we can see that it accomplished this. In Genesis 3, we had our first adversary on this earth in the family of Cain. And this was to be until the very end. Remember, the Father said He would put hatred between these two opposing families till the very end. The fallen angels of Genesis 6 became another earthly adversary. However, I want you to think about what I'm going to tell you, brethren. They also became the adversary of the children of Cain. You see, now you have two other opposing seed lines that are going to go to war at each other for thousands of years. And for those of you who thoroughly research history, you can see the seeds of Genesis 3 and the seeds of Genesis 6 fighting all throughout history for control of this earth and us in the middle. So why else would our loving, all-knowing, all-powerful Father allow this and even orchestrate the event? Well, here is your answer, brethren. Are you ready? So that you may be elevated and you may overcome it as we are called to do in this life. You see, we are conquerors of this world. I want you to recall the battles that took place between our people and these Nephilim, the giants. Our Father was glorified when we put our faith in Him and destroyed the hell out of these beings. Remember David, being a young Israelite, killed Goliath. In another battle with the giant who had 6 fingers and 6 toes, he taunted Israel. He was taunting them. He was mocking them. He was laughing at them. Jonathan killed him. Now, the reason that Jonathan and David and so many of our people were able to kill these giants was because of faith in our Almighty Father. You see, it was faith. It was faith in our Father that we can do anything against any force. So when we put that kind of faith in our Father and we overcome it, He's glorified. In the book of Numbers 13:33, and yes, the numbers are compelling, 1/3 and 33. However, in the original text, there were no numbers. The Bible just went straight through. There was never a number. There was never a chapter. It was a straight read. I actually have a Bible that's like that. There are no numbers in it. In the book of Numbers, we see, and there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so were we in their sight. So again, your family comes across these monsters. They're scared. These beings are big. They're intimidating. They're mean. They're nasty. They're bullies. That's what the word Nephil means, the ones that fell, bullies and tyrants. See, your family had lived among them and near them, and they had endured the hell of being around these monsters for a long time, and their offspring. But through it all, your people, our people, learned how to deal with them, and we glorified our Father through our faith and our trust in Him. But what I'm telling you here is that this is just the beginning of the story, because this is to go on until the very end, because these monsters never went anywhere. Their offspring are among you today, and they're not 12 foot tall, brethren. They're not 12 foot tall, but you see them every single day. They're all over the television, all over the internet, might be at the corner store, might be your neighbor. Some are more powerful than others, but they are all around you. I want you to hear me, brethren. Please listen to me. Demonic forces and demonic beings are not tied to idle tales. In the modern and so-called sophisticated world, folks see the technology of our society, and what's happened, they've lost touch with reality. They're spiritually stunted, and they deem themselves to be superior to anything that they can't understand. In fact, this happened to me just the other day on my backup channel. A guy said that I shouldn't have put a picture of a white boy, a white devil, mind you, with slits in his eyes in my video, because he was my, listen now, and I quote, he was my white Caucasian brother, and I shouldn't put him down. You see, folks have lost touch with reality, brethren. They have lost touch with reality. I mean, it's really that bad. It really is. And folks deem themselves to be superior to anything that they can't understand. So you see, like this guy, and his name was Gorilla Shekel Boy. And because he couldn't comprehend it, you see, it must not be true. And that's what's happened with a lot of Judeo-Christians and most of the world. If the Father ain't called them to understand it, can't be true. Can't be true. Must not be true. This is where we are really at. Now, and the monsters that we call the Nephilim that walk among us, they are sure as hell out in front doing the bulk of the work of the deception. It's amazing. They will tell you to be wary of the Nephilim when they are the Nephilim, you see. This subject is so important for us to understand that there's going to have to be a part 3 and maybe even a part 4. And we have to be willing to go further to understand the agenda that's taking place. And we need to mark the offspring of the Nephilim today because they, like I said, they are literally everywhere. So in the next video, we're going to bring it to our modern world. But first, we're going to have to go back into the scriptures. And we're going to have to look at more scriptures that describe these monsters. No, not 15-foot tall giants, but demonic beings that live in flesh suits. We will look at their characteristics. We will look at the book of Jude. We will look at the book of Matthew and the book of Revelation. Now, in the book of Jude, it says that these monsters have an advantage over us. And this is from my brother, Charming Danger. It says that these angels who left their first estate, they have an advantage over us. Why is that? Because they were allowed to retain, okay, the knowledge that they have in their DNA. This is why they can do things and understand things that we can't. Our Father has always kept us. Remember, back in the very beginning, we lived in tents, brethren. When we lived in tents, when the children of Cain were building cities, were working with the minerals of the ground, our Father always wanted his children to be simple and to do what? Rely on him. Not to rely on ourselves or other people, but to rely on him. But we are going to get into that much deeper. I want to close, and I want you to think about a couple verses that I would like to read to you. In Matthew chapter 15:12, Jesus Christ says, "Then came his disciples and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? But Jesus Christ answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up." Brethren, you cannot reject the knowledge that the Almighty Father gives you. And that's where we're at right now with most of the world and most of Israel. They simply have rejected the Father. They have rejected Jesus Christ, and they have rejected the knowledge. Hosea chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. My people are destroyed. Now, in the original text, it says cut off. And I actually have that. It says cut off. Now, what would be worse than being destroyed? Being cut off, because what? If you're cut off, what? You don't have the Father's ear. You can pray all you want. You can pray, shout, scream, cry. He's not hearing it. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. 7. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory and shame. Brethren, I will see you in part 3. Know that I love you. Stay away from the evil of this world. Be strong. Keep your heads up. And remember, Jesus Christ is everything. May the Almighty Father bless you in the name of the only name that saves, Jesus Christ.